Book 3. When heaven had overturned the Trojan state and Priam's throne, by too severe a fate, when ruined Troy became the Grecians' prey, and Ilium's lofty towers in ashes lay, warned by celestial omens we retreat, to seek in foreign lands a happier seat. Near old Antandros and at Ida's foot, the timber of the sacred groves we cut, and build our fleet, uncertain yet to find what place the gods for our repose assigned. Friends daily flock, and scarce the kindly spring began to clothe the ground, and birds to sing, when old Anchises summoned all to sea, the crew my father, and the fates obey. With sighs and tears I leave my native shore, and empty fields, where Ilium stood before. My sire, my son, our less and greater gods, all sail at once, and cleave the briny floods. Against our coast appears a spacious land, which once the fierce Lycurgus did command. Thracia the name, the people bold in war, vast are their fields and tillage is their care. A hospitable realm while fate was kind, with Troy in friendship and religion joined. I land, with luckless omens then adore their gods, and draw a line along the shore. I lay the deep foundations of a wall, and Enos named from me the city call. To Dione Venus vows are paid, and all the powers that rising labours aid. A bull on Jove's imperial altar laid. Not far, a rising hillock stood in view, sharp myrtles on the sides, and cornels grew. There, while I went to crop the sylvan scenes, and shade our altar with their leafy greens, I pulled a plant, with horror, I relate a prodigy, so strange and full of fate. The rooted fibres rose, and from the wound black bloody drops distilled upon the ground. Mute and amazed, my hair with terror stood. Fear shrunk my sinews, and congealed my blood. Maned once again, another plant I try, that other gushed with the same sanguine dye. Then, fearing guilt for some offence unknown, with prayers and vows the Dryads I atone, with all the sisters of the woods, and most the god of arms, who rules the Thracian coast, that they or he these omens would avert, release our fears, and better signs impart. Cleared as I thought and fully fixed at length to learn the cause, I tugged with all my strength, I bent my knees against the ground, once more the violated myrtle ran with gore. Scarce dare I tell the sequel, from the womb of wounded earth, and caverns of the tomb a groan as of a troubled ghost renewed my fright, and then these dreadful words ensued, Why dost thou thus my buried body rend? Oh, spare the corpse of thy unhappy friend. Spare to pollute thy pious hands with blood, the tears distil not from the wounded wood, but every drop this living tree contains is kindred blood, and ran in Trojan veins. O fly from this unhospitable shore, warned by my fate, for I am Polydore, here loads of lances in my blood imbrued, again shoot upward, by my blood renewed. My faltering tongue and shivering limbs declare my horror, and in bristles rose my hair. When Troy with Grecian arms was closely pent, old Priam, fearful of the war's event, this hapless Polydore to Thracia sent. Loaded with gold, he sent his darling, far from noise and tumults, and destructive war, committed to the faithless tyrant's care, who, when he saw the power of Troy decline, forsook the weaker, with the strong to join, broke every bond of nature and of truth, and murdered, for his wealth, the royal youth. O sacred hunger of pernicious gold, what bands of faith can impious lucre hold? Now, when my soul had shaken off her fears, I call my father and the Trojan peers, relate the prodigies of heaven, require what he commands, and their advice desire. All vote to leave that execrable shore, polluted with the blood of Polydore. But, ere we sail, his funeral rites prepare. Then, to his ghost, a tomb and altars rear. In mournful pomp the matrons walk the round, with baleful cypress and blue fillets crowned, with eyes dejected and with hair unbound. Then bowls of tepid milk and blood we pour, and thrice invoke the soul of Polydore. Now, when the raging storms no longer reign, but southern gales invite us to the main, we launch our vessels, with a prosperous wind, and leave the cities and the shores behind. An island in the Aegean main appears, Neptune and watery Doris claim it theirs. It floated once, till Phoebus fixed the sides to rooted earth, and now it braves the tides. Here, borne by friendly winds, we come ashore, with needful ease our weary limbs restore, and the sun's temple and his town adore. Aeneas, the priest and king, with laurel crowned, his hoary locks with purple fillets bound, who saw my sire the Delian shore ascend, came forth with eager haste to meet his friend, invites him to his palace, and in sign of ancient love, their plighted hands they join. Then to the temple of the god I went, and thus before the shrine my vows present. Give, O Thymbraeus, give a resting place to the sad relics of the Trojan race, a seat secure, a region of their own, a lasting empire, and a happier town. Where shall we fix? Where shall our labours end? Whom shall we follow, and what fate attend? Let not my prayers a doubtful answer find, but in clear auguries unveil thy mind. Scarce had I said, he shook the holy ground, the laurels, and the lofty hills around, and from the tripos rushed a bellowing sound. Prostrate we fell, confessed the present God, who gave this answer from his dark abode. Undaunted youths, go, seek that Mother Earth, from which your ancestors derived their birth. The soil that sent you forth, her ancient race in her old bosom shall again embrace. Through the wide world the Aenean house shall reign, and children's children shall the crown sustain. Thus Phoebus did our future fates disclose. A mighty tumult mixed with joy arose. All are concerned to know what place the god assigned, and where determined our abode. My father, long revolving in his mind the race and lineage of the Trojan kind, thus answered their demands: Ye princes, hear your pleasing fortune, and dispel your fear. The fruitful isle of Crete, well known to fame, sacred of old to Jove's imperial name, in the mid-ocean lies, with large command, and on its plains 100 cities stand. Another Ida rises there, and we from thence derive our Trojan ancestry. From thence, as it is divulged by certain fame, to the Rutulian shores old Teucrus came, there fixed, and there the seat of empire chose, ere Ilium and the Trojan towers arose. In humble vales they built their soft abodes, till Cybele, the mother of the gods, with tinkling cymbals charmed the Idaean woods, she secret rites and ceremonies taught, and to the yoke the savage lions brought. Let us the land which heaven appoints explore, appease the winds and seek the Gnossian shore. If Jove assists the passage of our fleet, the third propitious dawn discovers Crete. Thus having said, the sacrifices laid on smoking altars, to the gods he paid, a bull, to Neptune an oblation due, another bull to bright Apollo slew, a milk-white ewe, the western winds to please, and one coal-black, to calm the stormy seas. Ere this, a flying rumour had been spread that fierce Idomeneus from Crete was fled, expelled and exiled, that the coast was free from foreign or domestic enemy. We leave the Delian ports and put to sea, by Naxos, famed for vintage, make our way, then green Donisa pass, and sail in sight of Paros, Poros, isle, with marble quarries white. We pass the scattered isles of Cyclades, that, scarce distinguished, seem to stud the seas. The shouts of sailors double near the shores. They stretch their canvas, and they ply their oars, all hands aloft. For Crete, they cry, and swiftly through the foamy billows fly. Full on the promised land at length we bore, with joy descending on the Cretan shore. With eager haste a rising town I frame, which from the Trojan Pergamus I name. The name itself was grateful. I exhort to found their houses and erect a fort. Our ships are hauled upon the yellow strand, the youth begin to till the laboured land, and I myself new marriages promote, give laws and dwellings. I divide by lot when rising vapours choke the wholesome air, and blasts of noisome winds corrupt the year, the trees devouring caterpillars burn. Parched was the grass, and blighted was the corn, nor scaped the beasts for Sirius, from on high, with pestilential heat infects the sky. My men some fall, the rest in fevers fry. Again my father bids me seek the shore of sacred Delos, and the god implore, to learn what end of woes we might expect, and to what clime our weary course direct. It was night when every creature, void of cares, the common gift of balmy slumber shares. The statues of my gods, for such they seemed, those gods whom I from flaming Troy redeemed, before me stood, majestically bright, full in the beams of Phoebe's entering light. Then thus they spoke, and eased my troubled mind. What from the Delian god thou goest to find, he tells thee here, and sends us to relate. Those powers are we, companions of thy fate, who from the burning town by thee were brought, thy fortune followed, and thy safety wrought. Through seas and lands as we thy steps attend, so shall our care thy glorious race befriend. An ample realm for thee thy fates ordain, a town that over the conquered world shall reign. Thou mighty walls for mighty nations build, nor let thy weary mind to labours yield. But change thy seat, for not the Delian god nor we have given thee Crete for our abode. A land there is, Hesperia called of old. The soil is fruitful and the natives bold. The Oenotrians held it once, by later fame now called Italia, from the leader's name. Lasius there and Dardanus were born. From thence we came, and thither must return. Rise, and thy sire with these glad tidings greet. Search Italy, for Jove denies thee Crete. Astonished at their voices and their sight, nor were they dreams, but visions of the night I saw. I knew their faces, and descried in perfect view their hair, with fillets tied winking face. I started from my couch, a clammy sweat on all my limbs and shivering body sate. To heaven I lift my hands with pious haste, and sacred incense in the flames I cast. Thus to the gods their perfect honours done, more cheerful, to my good old sire I run, and tell the pleasing news. In little space he found his error of the double race, not, as before he deemed, derived from Crete, no more deluded by the doubtful seat. Then said, O son, turmoiled in Trojan fate, such things as these Cassandra did relate. This day revives within my mind what she foretold of Troy renewed in Italy, and Latian lands. But who could then have thought that Phrygian gods to Latium should be brought, or who believed what mad Cassandra taught? Now let us go where Phoebus leads the way, he said, and we with glad consent obey, forsake the seat, and leaving few behind we spread our sails before the willing wind. Now from the sight of land our galleys move, with only seas around and skies above, when over our heads descends a burst of rain, and night with sable clouds involves the main. The ruffling winds the foamy billows raise, the scattered fleet is forced to several ways. The face of heaven is ravished from our eyes, and in redoubled peals the roaring thunder flies. Cast from our course we wander in the dark, no stars to guide, no point of land to mark. Even Palinurus no distinction found betwixt the night and day. Such darkness reigned around. 3 starless nights the doubtful navy strays without distinction, and 3 sunless days. The 4th renews the light, and from our shrouds we view a rising land like distant clouds. The mountain tops confirm the pleasing sight, and curling smoke ascending from their height. The canvas falls, their oars the sailors ply. From the rude strokes the whirling waters fly. At length I land upon the Strophades, safe from the danger of the stormy seas. Those isles are compassed by the Ionian main, the dire abode where the foul harpies reign, forced by the winged warriors to repair to their old homes, and leave their costly fare. Monsters more fierce offended heaven, never sent from hell's abyss for human punishment, with virgin faces, but with wombs obscene, foul paunches, and with ordure still unclean, with claws for hands and looks forever lean. We landed at the port, and soon beheld fat herds of oxen graze the flowery field, and wanton goats without a keeper strayed. With weapons we the welcome prey invade, then call the gods for partners of our feast, and Jove himself, the chief invited guest. We spread the tables on the greensward ground, we feed with hunger, and the bowls go round. When from the mountain tops, with hideous cry and clattering wings, the hungry harpies fly, they snatch the meat, defiling all they find, and parting, leave a loathsome stench behind. Close by a hollow rock, again we sit, new dress the dinner, and the beds refit, secure from sight, beneath a pleasing shade, where tufted trees a native arbour made. Again the holy fires on altars burn, and once again the ravenous birds return, or from the dark recesses where they lie, or from another quarter of the sky, with filthy claws their odious meal repeat, and mix their loathsome ordures with their meat. I bid my friends for vengeance then prepare, and with the hellish nation wage the war. They, as commanded, for the fight provide, and in the grass their glittering weapons hide. Then, when along the crooked shore we hear their clattering wings, and saw the foes appear, Maecenas sounds a charge. We take the alarm, and our strong hands with swords and bucklers arm. In this new kind of combat all employ their utmost force, the monsters to destroy. In vain the fated skin is proof to wounds, and from their plumes the shining sword rebounds. At length rebuffed, they leave their mangled prey, and their stretched pinions to the skies display. Yet one remained, the messenger of fate, high on a craggy cliff, Celaeno sate, and thus her dismal errand did relate. What? Not contented with our oxen slain, dare you with heaven an impious war maintain, and drive the Harpies from their native reign? Heed therefore what I say, and keep in mind what Jove decrees, what Phoebus has designed, and I, the Furies' queen, from both relate. You seek the Italian shores, foredoomed by fate. The Italian shores are granted you to find, and a safe passage to the port assigned. But know, that ere your promised walls you build, my curses shall severely be fulfilled. Fierce famine is your lot for this misdeed, reduced to grind the plates on which you feed. She said, and to the neighbouring forest flew. Our courage fails us, and our fears renew. Hopeless to win by war, to prayers we fall, and on the offended Harpies humbly call, and whether gods or birds obscene they were, our vows for pardon and for peace prefer. But old Anchises, offering sacrifice, and lifting up to heaven his hands and eyes, adored the greater gods. Avert, said he, these omens, render vain this prophecy, and from the impending curse a pious people free. Thus having said, he bids us put to sea. We loose from shore our horses and obey, and soon with swelling sails pursue the watery way. Amidst our course, Zacinthian woods appear, and next by rocky Neritos we steer. We fly from Ithaca's detested shore, and curse the land which dire Ulysses bore. At length Leucate's cloudy top appears, and the sun's temple, which the sailor fears. Resolved to breathe a while from labour past, our crooked anchors from the prow we cast, and joyful, to the little city haste. Here, safe beyond our hopes, our vows we pay to Jove, the guide and patron of our way. The customs of our country we pursue, and Trojan games on action shores renew. Our youth, their naked limbs besmear with oil, and exercise the wrestlers' noble toil, pleased to have sailed so long before the wind, and left so many Grecian towns behind. The sun had now fulfilled his annual course, and Boreas on the seas displayed his force. I fixed upon the temple's lofty door the brazen shield which vanquished, Abas, bore the verse beneath my name and action speaks. These arms Aeneas took from conquering Greeks. Then I command to weigh, the seamen ply their sweeping oars, the smoking billows fly. The sight of high Phaeacia soon we lost, and skimmed along Epirus' rocky coast. Then to Chaonia's port our course we bend, and landed to Bothrotus' heights ascend. Here wondrous things were loudly blazed fame, how Helenus revived the Trojan name and reigned in Greece, that Priam's captive son succeeded Pyrrhus in his bed and throne, and fair Andromache, restored by fate, once more was happy in a Trojan mate. I leave my galleys riding in the port, and long to see the new Dardanian court. By chance, the mournful queen, before the gate, then solemnized her former husband's fate. Green altars, raised of turf, with gifts she crowned, and sacred priests in order stand around, and thrice the name of hapless Hector sound. The grove itself resembles Ida's wood, and Simois seemed the well-dissembled flood. But when, at nearer distance, she beheld my shining armour and my Trojan shield, astonished at the sight, the vital heat forsakes her limbs. Her veins no longer beat, she faints, she falls, and scarce recovering strength, thus, with a faltering tongue, she speaks at length. "Are you alive, O goddess born?" she said. "Or if a ghost, then where is Hector's shade?" At this, she cast a loud and frightful cry. With broken words, I made this brief reply: "All of me that remains, appears in sight. I live, if living be to loathe the light. No phantom, but I drag a wretched life, my fate resembling that of Hector's wife. What have you suffered since you lost your lord? By what strange blessing are you now restored? Still are you Hector's, or is Hector fled, and his remembrance lost in Pyrrhus' bed?" With eyes dejected, in a lowly tone, after a modest pause she thus begun: "O, only happy maid of Priam's race, whom death delivered from the foe's embrace, commanded on Achilles' tomb to die, not forced, like us, to hard captivity, or in a haughty master's arms to lie. In Grecian ships unhappy we were born, endured the victor's lust, sustained the scorn. Thus I submitted to the lawless pride of Pyrrhus, more a handmaid than a bride. Cloyed with possession, he forsook my bed, and Helen's lovely daughter sought to wed. Then me to Trojan Helenus resigned, and his 2 slaves in equal marriage joined, till young Orestes, pierced with deep despair, and longing to redeem the promised fair, before Apollo's altar slew the ravisher. By Pyrrhus' death the kingdom we regained, at least 1/2 with Helenus remained. Our part, from Chaon, he Chaonia calls, and names from Pergamus, his rising walls. But you, what fates have landed on our coast? What gods have sent you, or what storms have tossed? Does young Ascanius life and health enjoy, saved from the ruins of unhappy Troy? Oh, tell me how his mother's loss he bears, what hopes are promised from his blooming years, how much of Hector in his face appears." She spoke, and mixed her speech with mournful cries, and fruitless tears came trickling from her eyes. At length her lord descends upon the plain, in pomp, attended with a numerous train, receives his friends, and to the city leads, and tears of joy amidst his welcome sheds. Proceeding on, another Troy I see, or, in less compass, Troy's epitome. A rivulet by the name of Xanthus ran, and I embraced the Scaean gate again. My friends in porticos were entertained, and feasts and pleasures through the city reigned. The tables filled the spacious hall around, and golden bowls with sparkling wine were crowned. 2 days we passed in mirth, till friendly gales, blown from the supplied our swelling sails. Then to the royal seer I thus began: "O thou, who knowest, beyond the reach of man, the laws of heaven, and what the stars decree, whom Phoebus taught unerring prophecy, from his own tripod and his holy tree. Skilled in the winged inhabitants of air, what auspices their notes and flights declare? O say, for all religious rites portend a happy voyage, and a prosperous end, and every power and omen of the sky direct my course for destined Italy. But only dire Shalenor from the gods, a dismal famine fatally forebodes. O say what dangers I am first to shun, what toils vanquish, and what course to run." The prophet first with sacrifice adores the greater gods, their pardon then implores, unbinds the fillet from his holy head. To Phoebus, next, my trembling steps he led, full of religious doubts and awful dread. Then, with his God possessed, before the shrine, these words proceeded from his mouth divine: "O goddess born, for heaven's appointed will, with greater auspices of good than ill, foreshows thy voyage and thy course directs. Thy fates conspire, and Jove himself protects. Of many things, some few I shall explain, teach thee to shun the dangers of the main, and how at length the promised shore to gain. The rest the fates from Helenus conceal, and Juno's angry power forbids to tell. First then, that happy shore that seems so nigh, will far from your deluded wishes fly. Long tracts of seas divide your hopes from Italy, for you must cruise along Sicilian shores, and stem the currents with your struggling oars, then round the Italian coast your navy steer, and, after this, to Circe's island veer, and last, before your new foundations rise, must pass the Stygian lake, and view the nether skies. Now mark the signs of future ease and rest, and bear them safely treasured in thy breast. When in the shady shelter of a wood, and near the margin of a gentle flood, thou shalt behold a sow upon the ground, with 30 sucking young encompassed round, the dam and offspring white as falling snow. These on thy city shall their name bestow, and there shall end thy labours and thy woe. Nor let the threatened famine fright thy mind, for Phoebus will assist, and fate the way will find. Let not thy course to that ill coast be bent, which fronts from far the Epirian continent. Those parts are all by Grecian foes possessed, the salvage Locrians here. The shores infest, there fierce Idomeneus his city builds, and guards with arms the Salentinian fields. And on the mountain's brow Petilia stands, which Philoctetes with his troops commands. Even when thy fleet is landed on the shore, and priests with holy vows the gods adore, then with a purple veil involve your eyes, lest hostile faces blast the sacrifice. These rites and customs to the rest commend, that to your pious race they may descend. When, parted hence, the wind that ready waits for Sicily, shall bear you to the straits where proud Pelorus opes a wider way, tack to the larboard and stand off to sea. Veer starboard sea and land. The Italian shore and fair Sicilia's coast were one, before an earthquake caused the floor. The roaring tides the passage broke that land from land divides, and where the land's retired, the rushing ocean rides. Distinguished by the straits, on either hand, now rising cities in long order stand, and fruitful fields. So much can time invade the mouldering work that beauteous nature made. Far on the right, her dog's foul Scylla hides, Charybdis roaring on the left presides, and in her greedy whirlpool sucks the tides, then spouts them from below. With fury driven, the waves mount up, and wash the face of heaven. But Scylla from her den, with open jaws, the sinking vessel in her eddy draws, then dashes on the rocks. A human face, and virgin bosom hides her tale's disgrace. Her parts obscene below the waves descend, with dogs enclosed, and in a dolphin end. It is safer then to bear aloof to sea, and coast Pechinus, though with more delay, than once to view misshapen Scylla near, and the loud yell of watery wolves to hear. Besides, if faith to Helenus be due, and if prophetic Phoebus tell me true, do not this precept of your friend forget, which therefore more than once I must repeat. Above the rest, great Juno's name adore. Pay vows to Juno, Juno's aid implore. Let gifts be to the mighty queen designed, and mollify with prayers her haughty mind. Thus, at the length your passage shall be free, and you shall safe descend on Italy. Arrived at Cumae, when you view the flood of black Avernus, and the sounding wood, the mad prophetic Sibyl you shall find, dark in a cave, and on a rock reclined. She sings the fates, and, in her frantic fits, the notes and names inscribed to leafs commits. What she commits to leafs, in order laid, before the cavern's entrance are displayed, unmoved they lie. But, if a blast of wind without, or vapours issue from behind, the leafs are borne aloft in liquid air, and she resumes no more her museful care, nor gathers from the rocks her scattered verse, nor sets in order what the winds disperse. Thus, many not succeeding, most upbraid the madness of the visionary maid, and with loud curses leave the mystic shade. Think it not loss of time a while to stay, though thy companions chide thy long delay, though summoned to the seas, though pleasing gales invite thy course, and stretch thy swelling sails. But beg the sacred priestess to relate with willing words, and not to write thy fate. The fierce Italian people she will show, and all thy wars and all thy future woe, and what thou mayest avoid, and what must undergo. She shall direct thy course, instruct thy mind, and teach thee how the happy shores to find. This is what heaven allows me to relate. Now part in peace. Pursue thy better fate, and raise, by strength of arms, the Trojan state. This when the priest with friendly voice declared, he gave me license, and rich gifts prepared, bounteous of treasure. He supplied my want with heavy gold and polished elephant. Then Dodonian cauldrons put on board, and every ship with sums of silver stored. A trusty coat of mail to me he sent, thrice chained with gold, for use and ornament. The helm of Pyrrhus added to the rest, that flourished with a plume and waving crest. Nor was my sire forgotten, nor my friends, and large recruits he to my navy sends. Men, horses, captains, arms and warlike stores. Supplies new pilots, and new sweeping oars. Meantime, my sire commands to hoist our sails, lest we should lose the first auspicious gales. The prophet blessed the parting crew, and last, with words like these, his ancient friend embraced. Old happy man, the care of gods above, whom heavenly Venus honoured with her love, and twice preserved thy life, when Troy was lost. Behold from far the wished Ausonian coast, their land. But take a larger compass round, for that before is all forbidden ground. The shore that Phoebus has designed for you, at farther distance lies, concealed from view. Go happy hence, and seek your new abodes, blessed in a son, and favoured by the gods. For I with useless words prolong your stay, when southern gales have summoned you away. Nor less the queen our parting thence deplored, nor was less bounteous than her Trojan lord. A noble present to my son she brought, a robe with flowers on golden tissue wrought, a Phrygian vest, and loads with gifts beside of precious texture, and of Asian pride. Accept, she said, these monuments of love, which in my youth with happier hands I wove. Regard these trifles for the giver's sake. It is the last present Hector's wife can make. Thou callest my lost Astyanax to mind. In thee his features and his form I find. His eyes so sparkled with a lively flame. Such were his motions, such was all his frame. And had heaven so pleased, his years had been the same. With tears I took my last adieu, and said, your fortune, happy pair, already made, leaves you no farther wish. My different state, avoiding one, incurs another fate. To you a quiet seat the gods allow. You have no shores to search, no seas to plough, nor fields of flying Italy to chase. Deluding visions, and a vain embrace. You see another Simois, and enjoy the labour of your hands. Another Troy, with better auspice than her ancient towers, and less obnoxious to the Grecian powers. If ever the gods, whom I with vows adore, conduct my steps to Tiber's happy shore, if ever I ascend the Latian throne and build a city I may call my own, as both of us our birth from Troy derive, so let our kindred lines in concord live, and both in acts of equal friendship strive. Our fortunes, good or bad, shall be the same. The double Troy shall differ but in name, that what we now begin may never end, but long to late posterity descend. Near the Ceraunian rocks our course we bore, the shortest passage to the Italian shore. Now had the sun withdrawn his radiant light, and hills were hid in dusky shades of night. We land, and on the bosom of the ground a safe retreat and a bare lodging found. Close by the shore we lay, the sailors keep their watches, and the rest securely sleep. The night, proceeding on with silent pace, stood in her noon, and viewed with equal face her steepy rise and her declining race. Then wakeful Palinurus rose, to spy the face of heaven, and the nocturnal sky, and listened every breath of air to try observes the stars, and notes their sliding course, the Pleiads, Hyads, and their watery force, and both the bears is careful to behold, and bright Orion, armed with burnished gold. Then, when he saw no threatening tempest nigh, but a sure promise of a settled sky, he gave the sign to weigh. We break our sleep, forsake the pleasing shore, and plough the deep. And now the rising morn with rosy light adorns the skies, and puts the stars to flight, when we from far like bluish mists descry the hills, and then the plains of Italy. Achates first pronounced the joyful sound, then, Italy, the cheerful crew rebound. My sire Anchises crowned a cup with wine, and offering, thus implored the powers divine. Ye gods, presiding over lands and seas, and you who raging winds and waves appease, breathe on our swelling sails a prosperous wind, and smooth our passage to the port assigned. The gentle gales their flagging force renew, and now the happy harbour is in view. Minerva's temple then salutes our sight, placed as a landmark on the mountain's height. We furl our sails, and turn the prows to shore, the curling waters round the galleys roar. The land lies open to the raging east, then, bending like a bow, with rocks compressed, shuts out the storms. The winds and waves complain, and vent their malice on the cliffs in vain. The port lies hid within. On either side, two towering rocks the narrow mouth divide. The temple, which aloft we viewed before, to distance flies, and seems to shun the shore. Scarce landed, The first omens I beheld were 4 white steeds that cropped the flowery field. War is threatened from this foreign ground, my father cried, where warlike steeds are found. Yet, since reclaimed to chariots they submit, and bend to stubborn yokes and champ the bit, peace may succeed to war. Our way we bend to Pallas, and the sacred hill ascend. There prostrate to the fierce Virago pray, whose temple was the landmark of our way. Each with a Phrygian mantle veiled his head, and all commands of Helenus obeyed, and pious rites to Grecian Juno paid. These dues performed, we stretch our sails, and stand to sea, forsaking that suspected land. From hence Tarentum's bay appears in view, for Hercules renowned, if fame be true. Just opposite Licinian Juno stands, Caulonian towers and Silicaean strands, for shipwrecks feared. Mount Etna thence we spy, known by the smoky flames which cloud the sky. Far off we hear the waves with surly sound invade the rocks their groans rebound, the billows break upon the sounding strand, and roll the rising tide impure with sand. Then thus Anchises in experience old, it is that Charybdis which the seer foretold, and those the promised rocks, bear off to sea, with haste the frighted mariners obey. First Palinurus to the larboard veered, then all the fleet by his example steered. To heaven aloft on ridgy waves we ride, then down to hell descend when they divide. And thrice our galleys knocked the stony ground, and thrice the hollow rocks returned the sound, and thrice we saw the stars that stood with dews around. The flagging winds forsook us with the sun, and wearied on Cyclopean shores we run. The port capacious and secure from wind is to the foot of thundering Etna joined. By turns a pitchy cloud she rolls on high, by turns hot embers from her entrails fly, and flakes of mounting flames that lick the sky. Oft from her bowels massy rocks are thrown, and shivered by the force come piecemeal down. Oft liquid lakes of burning sulphur flow, fed from the fiery springs that boil below. Enceladus, they say, transfixed by Jove, with blasted limbs came tumbling from above, and, where he fell, the avenging father drew this flaming hill, and on his body threw. As often as he turns his weary sides, he shakes the solid isle, and smoke the heavens hides. In shady woods we pass the tedious night, where bellowing sounds and groans our souls affright, of which no cause is offered to the sight, for not one star was kindled in the sky, nor could the moon her borrowed light supply. For misty clouds involved the firmament, the stars were muffled, and the moon was pent. Scarce had the rising sun the day revealed, scarce had his heat the pearly dews dispelled, when from the woods there bolts before our sight, somewhat betwixt a mortal and a sprite, so thin, so ghastly meagre and so wan, so bare of flesh, he scarce resembled man. This thing, all tattered, seemed from far to implore our pious aid, and pointed to the shore. We look behind, then view his shaggy beard, his clothes were tagged with thorns, and filth his limbs besmeared. The rest, in mien, in habit, and in face, appeared a Greek, and such indeed he was. He cast on us, from far, a frightful view, whom soon for Trojans and for foes he knew, stood still, and paused. Then all at once began to stretch his limbs, and trembled as he ran. Soon as approached, upon his knees he falls, and thus with tears and sighs for pity calls. Now by the powers above, and what we share from nature's common gift, this vital air, O Trojans, take me hence. I beg no more, but bear me far from this unhappy shore. It is true I am a Greek, and farther own, among your foes besiege the imperial town. For such demerits if my death be due, no more for this abandoned life I sue. This only favour let my tears obtain, to throw me headlong in the rapid main, since nothing more than death my crime demands. I die content, to die by human hands, he said, and on his knees my knees embraced. I bade him boldly tell his fortune past, his present state, his lineage and his name, the occasion of his fears, and whence he came. The good Anchises raised him with his hand, who thus encouraged, answered our demand. From Ithaca, my native soil, I came to Troy, and Achaemenides my name. Me my poor father with Ulysses sent. Oh, had I stayed with poverty content, but fearful for themselves, my countrymen left me forsaken in the Cyclops' den. The cave, though large, was dark. The dismal floor was paved with mangled limbs and putrid gore. Our monstrous host of more than human size erects his head, and stares within the skies, bellowing his voice, and horrid is his hue. Ye gods, remove this plague from mortal view. The joints of slaughtered wretches are his food, and for his wine he quaffs the streaming blood. These eyes beheld, when with his spacious hand he seized 2 captives of our Grecian band. Stretched on his back, he dashed against the stones their broken bodies and their crackling bones. With spouting blood the purple pavement swims, while the dire glutton grinds the trembling limbs. Not unrevenged Ulysses bore their fate, nor thoughtless of his own unhappy state. For, gorged with flesh and drunk with human wine while fast asleep, the giant lay supine, snoring aloud and belching from his maw his indigested foam, and morsels raw we pray. We cast the lots, and then surround the monstrous body, stretched along the ground. Each, as he could approach him, lends a hand to bore his eyeball with a flaming brand. Beneath his frowning forehead lay his eye, for only one did the vast frame supply, but that a globe so large his front it filled, like the sun's disk, or like a Grecian shield. The stroke succeeds, and down the pupil bends. This vengeance followed for our slaughtered friends. But haste, unhappy wretches, haste to fly. Your cables cut, and on your oars rely. Such, and so vast as Polypheme appears, 100 more this hated island bears. Like him, in caves they shut their woolly sheep. Like him, their herds on tops of mountains keep. Like him, with mighty strides, they stalk from steep to steep, and now 3 moons their sharpened horns renew. Since thus, in woods and wilds, obscure from view, I drag my loathsome days with mortal fright, and in deserted caverns lodge by night. Oft from the rocks, a dreadful prospect see of the huge Cyclops, like a walking tree. From far I hear his thundering voice resound, and trampling feet that shake the solid ground. Cornels and salvage berries of the wood, and roots and herbs, have been my meagre food. While all around my longing eyes I cast, I saw your happy ships appear at last. On those I fixed my hopes, to these I run. It is all I ask, this cruel race to shun. What other death you please, yourselves bestow. Scarce had he said, when on the mountain's brow we saw the giant shepherd stalk before his following flock, and leading to the shore. A monstrous bulk, deformed, deprived of sight, his staff a trunk of pine, to guide his steps aright. His ponderous whistle from his neck descends, his woolly care their pensive lord attends. This only solace his hard fortune sends. Soon as he reached the shore and touched the waves, from his bored eye the guttering blood he laves. He gnashed his teeth and groaned. Through seas he strides, and scarce the topmost billows touched his sides. Seized with a sudden fear, we run to sea, the cables cut, and silent haste away, the well-deserving stranger entertain. Then, buckling to the work, our oars divide the main. The giant hearkened to the dashing sound, but when our vessels out of reach he found, he strided onward, and in vain essayed the Ionian deep, and durst no farther wade. With that he roared aloud. The dreadful cry shakes earth, and air, and seas. The billows fly before the bellowing noise to distant Italy. The neighbouring Aetna, trembling all around, the winding caverns echo to the sound. His brother Cyclops hear the yelling roar, and rushing down the mountains, crowd the shore. We saw their stern distorted looks, from far, and one-eyed glance, that vainly threatened war. A dreadful council, with their heads on high. The misty clouds about their foreheads fly winking face, not yielding to the towering tree of Jove, or tallest cypress, of Diana's grove. New pangs of mortal fear our minds assail. We tug at every oar and hoist up every sail, and take the advantage of the friendly gale. Forewarned by Helenus, we strive to shun Charybdis, gulf, nor dare to Scylla run. An equal fate on either side appears. We, tacking to the left, are free from fears, for, from Pelorus point, the north arose, and drove us back where swift Pantagius flows. His rocky mouth we pass, and make our way by Thapsus and Megara's winding bay. This passage Achaemenides had shown, tracing the course which he before had run. Right over against Plemmyrium's watery strand, there lies an isle once called the Ortygian land. Alpheus, as old fame reports, has found from Greece a secret passage underground, by love, to beauteous Arethusa led, and, mingling here, they roll in the same sacred bed. As Helenus enjoined, we next adore Diana's name, protectress of the shore. With prosperous gales we pass the quiet sounds of still Elorus, and his fruitful bounds. Then, doubling Cape Pichinus, we survey the rocky shore extended to the sea. The town of Camarine from far we see, and fenny lake, undrained by fate's decree. In sight of the Gelone fields we pass, and the large walls, where mighty Gela was. Then Agragas, with lofty summits crowned, long for the race of warlike steeds renowned. We passed Selinus, and the palmy land, and widely shun the Lilybean strand, unsafe, for secret rocks and moving sand. At length on shore the weary fleet arrived, which Drepanum's unhappy port received. Here, after endless labours, often tossed by raging storms and driven on every coast, my dear, dear father, spent with age, I lost. Ease of my cares, and solace of my pain, saved through 1,000 toils, but saved in vain the prophet, who my future woes revealed, yet this, the greatest and the worst, concealed. And dear Teleino, whose foreboding skill denounced all else, was silent of the ill. This my last labour was. Some friendly god from thence conveyed us to your blessed abode. Thus, to the listening queen, the royal guest, his wandering course, and all his toils expressed, and here concluding, he retired to rest.